Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. We start to say it at the same time. Welcome to If These Heels Could Talk. I'm Michelle from Bad Cat Digital.
I'm JoyGenea from Solutions by JoyGenea.
And today we are talking about uncomfortable invitations.
Yeah.
Or even past uncomfortable invitations.
Those, and two events. What we're talking about for invitations, we're talking about two events. So obviously, it's that time of year where we're getting invited to social events.
Absolutely. By business associates and
yes.
acquaintances.
So this is under a business. And the reason we kind of brought it up is because we live in a smaller community, medium-sized community. And so you typically kind of know everybody in the business community or have a pretty good feel.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those, if you don't know somebody, you know of them, have heard of them. When somebody's new, it's like, ooh, a new person.
Right, and they're new for about 3 months. And then we're like, oh,
Yeah, I know so-and-so.
So we're coming to that time of year where you get invited to a variety of things. And really throughout the year, there's just events and so forth that you get invited to, but you're invited. And a key part of it, it's business related, and a key part of you being invited is you are representing your business. In your attendance to this, you will be representing your business.
Yeah, so whether it's a community event, a municipal event, or a business event, or even just a client's holiday party or something simple like that, you are representing your business in these spaces.
Mm-hmm. And so the question becomes, what if you get invited to an event that is outside of the alignment of you as a person and outside the alignment of your actual values and might even be counter to your beliefs and structure.
And one of the reasons we're talking about this now, because with these types of events, these kind of sticky social / business situations are really come up a lot around this time of year because there are so many.
Yes.
Fabulous and amazing religious holidays
that all conglomerate
in the winter,
in this
like 2 to 3 month time frame.
Right.
And in our region and area, the predominant faith in terms of the culture of the area, interestingly enough, not necessarily by numbers, but in terms of the cultural leaders of the area and the business community.
That makes sense.
Christianity is the dominant religion of the region, and a particular kind of like a brand of Christianity, of a very traditional.
Well, there's always a more
conservative.
Dominant.
Yeah.
There's always a more dominant religion. That's how this works.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is by the numbers in our town, it's actually not. But
interesting.
But in terms of cultural impact, it actually is.
Yeah, it's a different shift.
Yeah. So basically, when we're getting invited to as a non-Christian, when I get invited to Christian focused events as a business owner, I have choices. Mm-hmm. Right? And some of those choices are based on who else is going to be there, how close is the person that invited me versus the other people that are going to be there, like how close are they to, my comfort level and who I know.
Yeah. That makes
how
sense.
much information am I willing to share if I decide to turn down the information or the invitation, how much information am I willing to share in that? What do I feel safe talking about?
Yes.
And what do I feel business safe talking about?
Yes. And then there's always that element of authenticity and transparency.
Right.
Like you don't want to be completely out of alignment from who you are. Never to pretend to be something you're not.
Right.
Just willing, because it's just a lie, and at some point it gets brought out.
Right.
Like it's not going to turn out good.
So it's asking that, it's that same conversation about, do I make an excuse? Like, oh, sorry, I've got a family thing.
I got to get my hair done. I'm sorry. I'm in the middle of an avocado mask that morning.
Yeah. My cat needs to go to the vet and be groomed or whatever. It doesn't matter. Or the old standby in business is, I'm sorry, it's just crazy busy right now and I just don't have time. And everybody believes that because it's so true. But the point being, are you comfortable with is the person asking, or is the situation such that the kind of the acceptable little white lie, the socially acceptable blow off. We'll just call it the socially acceptable blow off to save everybody graces.
Yes.
Because frankly, I get invited to this. I've been very clear with people.
Yes.
And so I don't get invited to this stuff as much anymore.
Yeah.
And when I do, it's by people who just don't know me and don't need to know that much about me.
Sure.
And
so you can give them the casual.
So I can give them the casual blow off, and then somebody else will tell them later, "Oh, she doesn't do that."
Right. Like that's just not her.
Right. Because it's not the little white lie isn't just to save my blushes and saying no. It's also to save the blushes of the person who is asking.
Yes. Do you think that has prevented you from getting business?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
I would have to agree with you.
And there are
I know
clients,
that about this time.
Yeah, and
I'm aware.
There are clients that choose to kind of stay, or potential business that chooses to stay within that circle. It's very important to them.
Yes.
But the thing is that I've lost out on business opportunities that wouldn't have been a good fit anyway. That would not have stuck around long term because of that misalignment.
So, in making that choice and being invited to something that would be out of alignment. So I can give an example. I inherited some life insurance years ago.
Okay.
And it's through an organization that openly funds anti-gay things.
Okay.
And I'm opposed to that. I'm pretty transparent about that. And so I had to, and then I got invited through the business community here to attend one of their events because I have this insurance and so forth.
Yeah.
And I couldn't, and it was important. It was actually a client. It was all in alignment. And I had to pull them aside and say, I can't support this organization. As soon as I'm able to actually cash that policy out or roll it, I will, because I really so don't want my money used in that direction. You don't want me there.
Right.
Because I will say this.
But it's a private conversation.
It was a private conversation. He was like, I wasn't aware of that. And he goes, and I didn't know how you felt about it. And, and I said, and he asked me, he's like, well, why do you care? Because he had his beliefs about it. And it was a great opportunity for me to say, I grew up being bullied and discriminated against pretty heavily for my neuro disability differences.
Yeah.
And I said, so I have a real appreciation and value for that community, and I consider them brothers and sisters. I would say they're my people. Yeah. So I'm just like
balls of stardust next to you.
Yeah, I'm like I'm gonna champion for them. They were right there with me, man.
Yeah.
I was like, that's how it is. We were in the trenches. We
were together.
School.
Yeah, we were together. We survived. I survived getting bullied in this way, and this kid survived getting bullied this way.
Right.
But it's created a connection between us that I don't share with the bullies.
Right. And I'm just like, and I'm sorry, you're putting funds towards something I can't
support or believe in.
But it was a good conversation, but it was really challenging to get, like, I won't lie, I wanted to do the
you want to do the I'm just not, and not have, and avoid the uncomfortable conversation.
Right. Avoid
the potential social and business repercussions of that
and
uncomfortable conversation.
And he did stay a client, and he was good with it, and I could tell when it became uncomfortable. It went on for a couple of years, and I could just tell that it became uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I helped him move his services somewhere else.
Well, and both of us.
I knew exactly who could help support him and would be in alignment with his beliefs.
Yes, perfect.
Right. Not hard to find.
Both of us, though, I want to acknowledge in this moment that both of us have the privilege of doing that. We have the privilege of choosing because we are passing. We are passing as part of the cultural standard in our community.
Yes.
We pass as, it's a privilege to look like people that are in charge, right?
Yes. Yeah.
It is.
We do.
It is. It absolutely is. And what you brought up was a really cogent idea, because what you brought up is that this is an opportunity, and this is kind of what I wanted to talk about next.
Yeah.
Because there's the social brush off.
Right.
But then there's the opportunity to use your privilege in being invited into that space to ally with those who are not. Those who are excluded from that space, those who are maligned in that space, those who are whose rights are discriminated against in that space. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the opportunity. The opportunity is to ally.
Yes.
And
I know you do that a lot.
Well, and the thing is that it gets easier over time.
It does. The first one's a real bugger. We won't lie. The first one's a
really
bugger.
hard. But what happens is you stop getting invited.
Yes.
And that's great because I don't want to be invited there.
It does make it easier to just be
it's a
clear
lot
that-
easier not to be invited at the same time, though. When you're not invited, then the opportunity to ally goes away.
Right. You're not in the conversation.
Right. And that's okay for me
Yeah.
because it's easier on my life.
It is.
But that's, again, a privilege
Yes.
that I get to have by passing, by hiding.
And I've noticed over the past few years, and I don't think this is a new conversation, that the events, I've noticed that the events have gotten deeper rooted in their values, their missions, and
Right.
more transparent about them.
Right.
Which I think has made it easier.
It's easier to say no.
It is
because
easier-
it's easier to know where it aligns.
Yes. And I think
Right.
that's true for them and
Yeah.
and for myself. I know you have a young person on your staff who is was part of actually coordinating the Gay Pride
Yes.
event.
Yes.
And he was gracious enough to ask if I wanted to go and see the drag show when it was in town. I've never been to anything like this. And I know, and my friends were like,
year.
"Oh, you should go.
We're
This will
going
be
next
good."
year.
And it was so uncomfortable and new and interesting, and I'm so glad I went.
Yes.
And sometimes I bring this up also because sometimes even going to an event that in a cultural way that I've never experienced before is also good for me and my business to learn new things, to grow, to broaden, those types of things.
I truly believe that those who are educated and open to other viewpoints, other worldviews, are more creative, more interesting, more able to take on new challenges, more growth-minded. I mean, all of those things are additions to a business.
Yeah.
All of, being creative, having creative thinking, creative thought processes, being open to new experiences, being inclusive of other worldviews, wrestling with them.
Yes.
Asking these questions of ourselves. When we ask these questions of ourselves that we're asking right now is it right to do the social blow off because it's comfortable for me, or is it right to use the opportunity to ally? And at what point and who and how and where is my safety line? Those are really important conversations.
And you're right. And they're the conversations that I think get had on the edges of the majority.
Right.
So the majority probably
here's
isn't
hoping.
aware of this, or I know my friends that are in the major majority. They're not as aware of that. And when I
Right.
bring them into, I kind of got to think about that because there are a few things that actually, I don't know if I
that
can
are feeling
trust
kind of
this.
icky about it with me.
And I have good friendships with people, and luckily, and I have been able to have some of those conversations, and it's really interesting. They're like, I didn't realize people had those thoughts, like those were part of the process. And I'm like, for me, they are.
Yeah.
And for people out on these edges, they're going to have those same thoughts and ideas and, understandings.
Yeah, but their own perspective on it. And
Right.
so, I think it's a really interesting conversation. But I guess kind of where I end up on this is those invitations, those awkward invitations that you want to turn down.
Like your knee-jerk response is
Your
like,
knee-jerk
I don't
response
wanna
is,
do that.
I would never do that. In order to stay and play the long game of business, not the short game of immediate gain, but the long game of, embedding into a community, having a brand in a community, an authentic brand in a community, you have to find the line and then stick to your line. And you have to take some of those risks because the minute that you try to make everybody happy, you make nobody happy.
And I know when you first got here, you did attend a variety.
I did. And
you would come back because we co-office
Yep.
and you would be like, that was interesting. And I learned some things, but there were parts of it that were just so out of alignment.
Well, and the other...
So you went through your own process
Yeah.
of trial. I just wanted to...
Trial and error.
You did. You
Yep.
were like, maybe this, some of that. And there are certain organizations that I've found you definitely align with that also align with certain Christian organizations. And that's...
Yeah.
They have handled it differently. Each organization is different.
You know, for me, it really kind of comes down to not knowing the code. So I wasn't it's like, so I know a lot of people in more evangelical Christian spaces don't always see the code. But there's coded words, you know, there's a code to the invitation. And I, having not been raised in those spaces, having not familiarized myself with that kind of cultural, and then moving into a space where it's the dominant cultural.
It's the norm.
It is the standard. It's the standard.
Standard.
It's not actually the norm. It's the standard.
Got it.
And so it's actually, if you go by the numbers, it's actually less than 10% of residents. But in our community, but it sets the standard, right?
Right, and it's the standard.
And so because of that, and a lot of people then who are kind of sort of close to or in that next kind of 30% don't question the standard because it works for them.
Right.
And that's exactly what we're talking about. So by questioning it, you know, how many people do I alienate? I usually don't alienate the 30% in the middle.
No.
I typically alienate the 10%, and I'm okay with that because on the other side of it is the 10% of my people.
Right.
That I actually align with.
Yes.
And so what I'm kind of trying to dance around here that I just need to kind of just point blank say
Good job.
is that there's no long-term relationship out of alignment. It does not work that way.
It doesn't work for them and it won't work for you.
And it won't work for you.
And you can try and shove it. It's round and square.
But there's a lot of opportunity when you lean into your authenticity because people respect that for itself.
Yeah.
And then it also opens doors within that other space that would not have been open to you if you were trying to play the middle.
Yes.
And that's the thing. So allying opens doors. And partnering with people opens doors, but it has to be the right partner for where you're at. And I'm not trying to say that one is better than or one is, I mean, I do believe that one is better than, but I also know that in terms of long term, but I also know that that's not a belief everybody shares or is ready for. And I still would encourage people to get outside of their comfort zone, to have difficult conversations with people that are close to them and with whom they feel safe, because that's the practice to have them with the next very conservative person who's actually the chair of the committee that has a really deep and invested interest in this event succeeding. And it's different to be asked by that person than it is by somebody who's sitting at table 17 who has 2 extra seats and just doesn't want the embarrassment of an empty table.
Yes.
I'm not going to violate my personal principles or core values to fill a seat at somebody's freaking table at an event that I don't want to be at.
Yeah.
But I'm going to respond to that invitation differently.
Yes.
Than I would to the chair of the event for whom this principle and this is the deepest part of their value.
Yes.
Because I am going to respond respectfully.
And that is exactly how you should respond.
Yes.
I have seen some businesses at one point criticize certain things. I have seen that. I've seen people get invited and actually on social media be like, can you believe they would invite me to something like this? And
that's just
don't do that.
Classless dumpster fire.
Yeah.
Like
I wanted to point that out in case somebody's thinking about it.
You don't air laundry in a way that people can't publicly, in a way that people can't respond. I mean, it's just it's just classless. And that's a different kind of misalignment, right?
It is.
It's a different kind of misalignment. I mean, I kind of want to we want to wrap this up, but I want to leave on kind of one conversation. Last night, I was having a conversation with a professional friend.
Yes.
Close friend. Conversation full of secrets and difficult topics. And this close friend is a cisgendered mid-40s Gen X white man, and it was It was a fabulous conversation. I'm just going to put that right out there. It was a fabulous conversation. Also, it was like they woke up and noticed something for the very first time in this conversation. So they had pulled out a business magazine that is kind of ubiquitous in our area, something that the chamber puts out, the Business Central magazine. And they had pointed out that all of the people in it, except for a couple of stock photos of light-skinned black people, everybody in it was white. And I was like, okay. And he also said, and they're almost all men. There was only a few women. And I was like, really? I'm shocked.
Yeah.
And he was like, I just can't. I looked at one out of this community and it was this and this and this and so much different. And I was like, really? I'm shocked. And so we had that conversation. And then in the next breath, I said, so what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
So what are you going to do about it? Like, what's the next conversation? Like, I understand and hear your outrage, and I can guarantee you that when I first opened that magazine 4 years ago, I had a similar observation, but nowhere near the emotional response because it's what I expected it to be.
Right.
And I have no firsthand knowledge of, but I would imagine that a person of color in the business community in this town would also just not even bother opening it because it's not for them.
Right. Well, they're part of the over 50% of that aren't even members of the chamber. Like, there's a reason for that.
And there's a reason for that. And so the question isn't, and the chamber desperately wants them to be members, is better with their members.
Yes.
But have asked no questions and don't change anything to get there.
Well, they can't because you can't change something. You need the assistance of the direction you're going.
But it's also symbiotic, right?
Yes.
The chamber is a member-driven organization, so in order to drive it in a direction, you have to become a member. Kind of like the NRA. It's a member-driven organization. So those of us out there who maybe avoiding the conversations, maybe should become members because it's a member-driven organization. You know, you bring 101,000 people to the next rally, and you could switch the policy pretty darn quick.
Oh, yeah. It could be entertaining.
It could be entertaining.
But remember,
new executive director. Let's all vote. The former principal of Sandy Hook Elementary. No, I'm just sorry.
No.
Sorry. Too soon. Too soon.
So our hint to you and our reminder is just that you don't have, as a business, when you go to these events, you are representing your business, but you're also representing yourself. And you need to stay in alignment with both of those things. And if you aren't sure, you'll find out when you get there.
And avoiding the uncomfortable conversations around it isn't doing you any good.
You can do this.
You can. It's okay.
Yes. So thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you and talk with you next week. Bye.